gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to Wootton High School. I'm Jane Cocker. I'm the very, very, very proud administrator of the junior class of 2021. I have to think there for a minute. We are going to start our college forum. This has been an annual event at Wootton for a number of years, sponsored by our counselling department. So thank you for coming out, and I know it's a very foggy night, so we do appreciate it. And at this point, I will hand you over to Ms. Markovitz.
Thank you, Ms. Cocker. Good morning. Good evening, everyone. I'm Ariel Markovitz. I'm the resource counselor, and I wanted to thank you all as well for being here this evening. We are very excited to hear from our lovely panelists. I also want to introduce, we have one of our counselors here, Ms. Jennifer Taylor, and the counselors have done a brilliant job working with the juniors so far this year, and we will continue to work with them throughout the year. So before we get to all of our burning questions for our panelists, I wanted to recap what we have done with your children and what we plan to do for the rest of the junior year. So we met with them in December to have them complete a super match in Naviance to help them to start think about the college process, where they want to apply, what they're looking for in a college. So hopefully they might have shared that with you. And then we also talked about a timeline for testing for ACT, SAT, what works for them, making sure that they have that in their schedules for the junior year. Then we have them work on their course selections for their senior year, and we will be meeting individually with every single student in February to go over those course selections. And in March, we will meet with them in a small group to talk more specifically about the college application process. And a lot of that actually will be discussed this evening with our panelists. And then between March and the end of the school year, we meet one-on-one again with your children to talk about specifically what their plans are for after Wootton and their specific college lists and everything that they need to do before we see them again in the fall. Because before you know it, they're seniors and they're sending all their applications and doing all those final steps in the process. So that's our agenda, our plan for them. We get to see them a ton in the junior year. We really love working with our juniors and our seniors. It's a super fun time for us and hopefully not too stressful for them as well. And tonight is an important night and a great first step in understanding the admissions process. So before I get started, I'm going to emcee the night. I'm going to ask the panelists lots of different questions. I'm going to introduce our phenomenal college and career coordinator that many of you will, or not if you have not already met, is Kathleen Carr.
We love you! Hi everybody, how are you tonight? Thanks for joining us. So welcome to our college forum night. And we're here to let you know that we understand that the college process can be very daunting and just downright overwhelming. And that's why we try to put together these college panel nights or workshops and what have you. But to give you a little advice, our suggestion for your first steps with your students would be to start a conversation. Students, you can open up a dialogue with your parents. Parents, open up a dialogue with your kids. It might surprise you how similar or different each other's ideas about college might be. Students, your parents might like to see you at a small liberal arts school where you really see yourself at a large football school. Parents might want to attend, they might want you to attend a school that's a Tier 1 research institute or a small Catholic university. The key again is to communicate and ask a lot of questions. So as most of you students who are here are juniors, you still have time to figure out your post-secondary plans. We're here to help guide you, and with that said, we recommend taking your first ACT or SAT in the spring. The more information you have, the better off you'll be. I want to let you know a few upcoming events that will provide more information for you. We have the HBCU Fair, Historically Black Colleges and Universities Fair, that will be held at the universities at Shady Grove on Friday, January 24th from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. On Wednesday, March 25th, the in-school SAT Day will take place throughout Montgomery County Public Schools. Very important day to remember. On Tuesday, March 31st, the NACAC College Fair will be held at the Germantown Soccer Class. And that college fair, most juniors will attend. We will be providing more information as we get closer to the date. Additionally, throughout the summer months, the College and Career Center sponsors workshops on topics covering everything from financial aid to writing the college essay. These are free workshops that are presented by college admission professionals. And the summer workshop schedule will be posted in June. To answer some of your many questions, it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you our college panel. We have Brian Clear, the University of Maryland, Bailey Jacqueline of Johns Hopkins University, Grant Henry of Mount St. Mary's, Katie Ridgway of McDaniel College, and Matt Wilcox of the UGA. And to start off this process, I'm going to hand you over to Ariel Markowitz. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Carr. All right. So the way this evening is going to work is that each panelist will be asked a question, and then another panelist can answer the question as well, but only if the response is different than the first panelist's response. So we will start like round one, I'll call it, with a 2-minute, and only 2 minutes, please, panelists, explanation of the college and who you are representing this evening. And then we'll get started. I'll ask lots of questions that range from academics to the college essay to scholarships. And then if we have time at the end, we will certainly allow some parent questions. So thank you all so much for being here, and let's get going. All right, University of Maryland, you want to take it away, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit in about 2 minutes about University of Maryland.
All right, good evening everybody, thank you for coming out. My name is Ryan Clear, so I'm representing the University of Maryland College Park. So most of you are very familiar with us. So we are located in College Park, about 30, 45, maybe even an hour, depending on traffic, which there usually always is. So we are a large R1 public research institution. We are the flagship institution of the state of Maryland. We have around 30,000 undergraduate students, 10,000 graduate students. We have 120 majors. Some of our most popular and famous majors: computer science, business, engineering. Again, we have a lot of things we offer. We are a member of the Big Ten institution. We have study abroad programs all across the country. Kind of get what you offer that big traditional R1 football, but not really that good at it.
All right, hello everyone. I feel like I'm shooting a podcast or something with this, maybe like a headset. My name is Bailey Jacqueline. I'm Assistant Director of Admissions at Johns Hopkins University. We are the nation's very first research institution, and we are located in Baltimore City, Maryland, about an hour or so away. We are an urban institution that we're located within the city, so our students really get an immersive experience there, but with a very traditional campus residential feel. We are medium-sized, with about 5,300 undergraduate students in 2 undergraduate schools, an arts and science school and an engineering school. But we are liberal arts at our core, so all of our students take classes across all different major areas, all different disciplines, in order to be investigative thinkers, critical thinkers, and effective speakers. We receive more federal funding for research than any other institution. 98% of our students are doing applied learning in some way. So we are a place for students who are actively engaged inside and outside of the classroom and looking to make an impact.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Grant Henry from Mount St. Mary's University, located in Emmitsburg, Maryland. For all the students in here, how many of your parents ever gave you advice, right? Probably on the way here today, or even just like over the weekend? No one? Okay, wow, I was going to say. I just want to let you guys know that on my way here tonight, my mom said, Grant, what are you doing this evening? And I said, oh, I'm doing a college panel. She said, are your pants ironed? Does your suit look okay? You know, all of those things. So I'm 25 years old, I'm still getting advice from my mom, so it doesn't end, guys. Okay. But just a little bit about Mount St. Mary's University, located in rural Emmitsburg, Maryland, total undergraduate population of 1,889 total undergraduate students. You guys are wondering, sitting there thinking, where is Emmitsburg, Maryland? It's about an hour and 5 minutes up to Interstate 270, past Frederick, just about 20 minutes north of Frederick, and about 20 minutes south of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. There was a small battle there a few years ago. Thanks for laughing, I appreciate that. We have over 70 majors and minors on this campus, but about the top 3 are business, the health sciences, and cybersecurity and computer science, believe it or not. Although we are a liberal arts university, all of our students will take about 9 classes in our core curriculum over the course of their 4 years. Just learning, not what to think, but how to think, right? Laying the foundation of a liberal arts education that allows our business majors to think outside of the box in conference meetings. We're also celebrating a 98% placement rate 1 year after graduation. Everybody say, wow. Wow. Thank you. We're also ranked in 2018, which is about 2 years ago. We were ranked number 1 for job placement 1 year after graduation as well. So just about 98% of our students are holding down internships, full-time jobs, or were accepted into graduate school. Class of 2019 that graduated in May on Mother's Day. Actually just had students, about 46% of that student population, the senior class was walking across the stage with something already lined up. So something that we like to congratulate our students on. Thank you guys for coming.
Hi, I'm Katie Ridgway from McDaniel College. I'm not as caffeinated as Grant is, so I will not be quite as entertaining up here. But I'm here from McDaniel College. We are a small liberal arts school located in Westminster, Maryland, about an hour from here. We have about 1,600 undergraduate students. We have 70 plus majors. Most popular, biology, kinesiology. We're actually one of the only small liberal arts schools in Maryland that has kinesiology as a major. Business, education, and psychology. But we also have about 8 brand new majors just approved by the state of Maryland in the last couple weeks. And those, I won't be able to remember all 8, so don't quiz me. But you can see it online, but some of them that I do recall are engineering, biomedical sciences, health sciences, actuarial sciences, writing and publishing, as distinct from English, American Sign Language, and a separate elementary education major as distinct from the regular education majors. We're also a member of Colleges That Change Lives. It's a group of about 40 small liberal arts schools who were identified as hidden gems back in the 70s by a man named Lauren Hope, and we appear in the book Colleges That Change Lives and have been ever since the 70s. We're very proud of that. We get together nationally, all 40 schools, to do tours and college fairs all over the country. The book Colleges That Change Lives is a really great place to start if you're looking for a small liberal arts school experience, and you can read some more about us there. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Matt Wilcox. I'm the Regional Admissions Officer for the University of Georgia. I'm based at our offices in D.C., and I live now in Alexandria, Virginia. I moved up from Athens about 3 years ago. And if we had as much snow as closed down the original version of this event, we would have called out the National Guard. So I appreciate that. University of Georgia, we're a big state southern school. We're public. Also our state flagship, fairly similar to my friend Benyan down here. About 29,000 undergraduate students, about 9,000 graduate students. We're a southern school. We are located in Athens, Georgia. Athens is a college town. I love it. Cool music and art. If I say it's a kid, if I sound super old, so we'll leave that out. We do have D1 SEC sports and are doing slightly better in football than my friend on the end. Though we also lost we've got 17 schools and colleges that make us the University of Georgia, and about 200 majors and things our students. Thank you all for having me.
All right, thank you so much, panelists. All right, Ryan, we're going to start with you. The first question I have, and the topic we're going to discuss is academics. What do you look for on a student's transcript? Do you consider the number of EP classes taken?
Sure. So when we look at a transcript, so when you see our average statistics, we are actually considering that average based on the Montgomery County Public Schools. Since you are the biggest county that applies to Maryland, that's kind of how we base the grading system. So when we say the 4.33 average weighted GPA, that is based on the Montgomery County system. So what we say we look for, there's no magic kind of number. But we look for mostly A's, A's and B's, with a few C's and little to zero, D's. We are looking for APs, rigorous classes, especially in Montgomery County. You guys are taking, and at Wootton, you guys are taking a lot of advanced level courses. So we're looking for honors, AP courses. If you do dual enrollment instead of APs, we view that exactly the same. So we get that 5-point weighted scale. And for us, there's absolutely no preference on our end if you do dual enrollment or if you do APs. So we are only looking at freshman, sophomore, and junior year. We do not look at senior year grades. So in terms of you juniors, this is your last big push.
Any other panelists have a different response? Okay. Bailey, do you look at a student's cumulative or weighted GPA, or do you recalculate GPAs? And if so, how do you do that?
Sure. I'll say similar to
to Maryland, we're looking at the context in which a student has been educated. So we look at transcripts from Wootton in the context of transcripts from Wootton. And so we see the GPA as it is reported by your school. Some schools weight, others do not. Some schools don't have any GPA at all. We do not recalculate the GPA for the purposes of the evaluation. Rather, we're looking at the scale that your school uses to be able to evaluate you, and that's the context that we use on our side as well. Any other responses? Feel free to chime in.
I'll just say, we don't recalculate GPAs either unless there's a circumstance in which there's an unusual transcript that we're looking at. But one thing we do look at, we actually look at both the weighted and the unweighted cumulative GPA because we're looking to see students that seem to have a much higher weighted GPA. Often it's because they've taken more advanced coursework where they've gotten that bump. And we just want to make sure that we're seeing students that have adequately challenged themselves while they've been in high school. But that haven't gone too far the other way, where they've taken all AP classes to look super impressive, but got all C's and D's in those AP classes. That's not what we want to see. We want to see that you're appropriately challenging yourself. So, we do pay attention to that gap between the weighted and unweighted GPA, just so we get a total sense of what the kinds of classes the students take in high school and if those were the right fit for them.
Thank you for mentioning that. Okay, let's see. Grant. Please give us some insight to how you review applications. Is it committee-based? Is there outside readers? Is there a scoring system?
Sure, that's a great question. So Mount St. Mary's University, we have all individual readers, so I read for the entire county of Montgomery. So I will read Wootton transcripts, I will read in applications. Basically what I do is I sit, because it's all digital, so I'll be sitting at my desk looking over a student's college application, the physical application itself, the college essay, letters of recommendation. I'll be looking also at the classes that the student's been taking. We look at honors classes, AP credits, IB credits, and even dual enrollment. We want to make sure that we're looking at a holistic review process of the student. I can tell that if a student's a 3-sport athlete, has a part-time job, and volunteers on the weekends, I understand why you got a 3.5 GPA. You're very busy. We'll figure out how to manage your time better to get that 4.0, right? But being able to understand where a student is coming from in their circumstances. Not always is it, oh, they had a bad semester or a bad year. In high school, I took on so much responsibility that I wanted to really focus in on 3 aspects of my life in and outside of the classroom.
Any other different responses?
So the joke I always kind of make, and slightly not seriously, if there's any seniors in the room. So decisions by Maryland are completely random. So when I'm reading, I just raised that. Decisions are not random. How we read, who we read is random. Real bad. So when I'm reading, I might be reading from Virginia, from Pennsylvania, from New Jersey, some from Montgomery County, some from New York. Now I'm the representative for Montgomery County, so what that means is what I say is if you're accepted, I'm your guy. If not, I have a colleague that is a great person to yell at if you have any issues. In reality, basically what I kind of look for is, we're very familiar with Wootton. We receive 300 applications plus every year. But kind of just reference in terms of like, what does this transcript actually mean? A 3.5 in one school, like my colleague mentioned, is a lot different than 3.5 in another school. It's always that context of the school. So we read randomly, then we go back, and I'm kind of making sure the decisions make sense, context like that. If you have any questions in the process, I'm also your guy. We read kind of randomly process. If we have anyone that we think should be brought up to review, like, I'm reading someone and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this one, that's when we bring on a committee. But from the general read, it's going to be someone throughout the summer, and then it comes back to me.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Katie, what is the importance of extracurricular activities, leadership positions, and community service in the admissions process?
All of those kinds of experiences are extremely valuable. I think McDaniel particularly, but I think most colleges generally are looking for students who are going to be active members of the community, as opposed to students who are just going to be coming to class to get a paper and then they're going to blow out of town as soon as it's done. We want you to be part of our family. Our attitude at McDaniel is very much, if you pick us, we pick you back. So you can expect to get kind of swooped up. So we want to see that starting in the high school level. We want to see that you got involved in some way. Even if it's just something like, I'm pretty sure I put down reading as one of the things that I did on the side because I was an avid reader. It was hugely important to me. So sometimes students see extracurricular involvements and they don't think that they count, or they think that they're not correct, or they're not fitting some kind of bracket you have on there. Anything that you do in addition to your time in the classroom is important to tell us. It's the time to brag about yourself because it shows us a couple different things. It shows us, A, that you're capable of balancing intense, rigorous schoolwork, also with having a life. We want everybody to have that healthy work-life balance. We also see that you are somebody who's going to be willing to step up and maybe fill a gap or two if you need to. And we also see students who are well-rounded. You know, it's wonderful to have those students that have amazing GPAs and taken very rigorous classes, but if at the end of the day, they, seem to fall off the face of the earth, we're going to wonder what are they doing to fill their time? What are they doing to have a life outside of their academics? We want you to have that good balance. That being said, however, it's important to maintain the balance. We don't want the scales tipping too far in the other direction where suddenly extracurriculars are taking on so much importance to you that schoolwork is suffering. And that does come through clearly on an application. I always hate it when I see a student who's done so many amazing things and had internships and volunteered and climbed Mount Everest and did cure cancer, all this stuff, but then I see they have a 2.5 GPA. And it's because all of their energy went toward those very valuable things they were doing outside of the classroom. So I'd say watching yourself, making sure that you are maintaining the good balance and not stressing yourself out too far in one direction or the other is really important. But we definitely take your extracurricular activities, your leadership, all of those sorts of outside of the classroom learning opportunities very seriously when we look at your application.
Thank you. Okay, Matt, how do you feel about seniors who drop classes in the middle of their senior year when they suddenly get senioritis? And how is that viewed by admissions?
Not cool.
How do they report it to you as well?
So we could have said this for every answer, and we could say this probably for every answer going forward, is it varies from school to school, or depends, is the answer to every question in college admissions, because if you haven't got a feel for it, just in the breadth of the kinds of schools we have up here tonight, our answer on how we review applications or review a particular thing like changing schedules in the middle of senior year is going to be different between University of Georgia and my friend from Hopkins. So as you're doing this process, one of the things I would keep in mind for every question we ask is, if you know what schools you're interested in, think about asking questions to each of those individual schools or the representatives from those schools, because the answers may be different even between a Georgia and a Maryland. So specifically to your question, what do we do about our friends in the senior class who were taking the most rigorous course load possible, and then Christmas came around and they've decided now that basket weaving or something might be a better use for them of their time? It's not great, and if you've already gotten a decision, so if you've gotten an early action decision from the University of Georgia, go Dogs, and you've decided after that to change your schedule, it can happen that if you've changed your rigor enough, we might rescind that offer of admission. So it's something to talk to your counselors about at your school, it's something to talk to your college admissions officer about. Generally, I would advise against it and say keep your schedule, because that's what we looked at when you applied, that's what we admitted you with. If you do need to change something, it's not the end of the world, but you do want to be in touch with the college and your counselor.
Thank you very much. Okay. Let's see. Ryan, please comment on how you view world language credits and the number of years you would like to see on a transcript. Many of our students take 2 years of a world language in middle school. Does that count, or do you look only at high school?
Yeah, so when we evaluate transcripts to start, we only look at your high school grades. So I know for FCPS, you guys post your middle school grades at 7th and 8th. We're not going to be using that for the evaluation process. And here's what we require, so we mirror FCPS's requirements, so we only require 2 years of language that includes American Sign Language. Now, if you did that in middle school, that will technically be sufficient, and we will not, you're not going to be ineligible to apply. However, you're not going to be as competitive as someone that did that language requirement in high school. Someone that took language in high school, rather than just 2 years of Spanish in 7th and 8th grade, it's a different level. So it's good enough for applying in terms of we're not going to be, you're not ineligible, but you want to think about how making yourself better. You don't want to be just saying, oh, I took it in middle school, that's good enough. But in terms of what's required, It's only the 2 years of language.
Thank you. Are there any other differences?
We don't require foreign language as part of our admissions process, one or any specific number of years. We're looking to see the students have pursued a rigorous selection of courses that they have elected to take themselves or within respect of how much they're able to do so. Language is your jam, go for it. But it's not, for us at Hopkins, it's not so much counting the number of years that a student has pursued a particular course, but again, that they are progressing in those areas that they are pursuing.
Yeah, at Mount St. Mary's University, we actually require students to take 2 classes of a foreign language when they're here on campus. The way that you can help yourself out with that is that if you go above Spanish 3 or German 3, after 3 years of a foreign language, you'll be able to test into a 200 or a 300 level class, making it that you only have to take 1 class of a foreign language. So if you're only taking 2 years in middle school, I would recommend that you continue to help yourself through college or through high school in your senior year, junior year, sophomore year, freshman year. And then also, to be clear too, is that there's also a language placement test. If you decide that you're coming to the Mount and you want to come to, and you want to start a new language, you can start from scratch at Spanish 101, German 101. We even have classes in Mandarin, which is kind of cool. But then we also have the opportunities for students to test into harder or higher levels of those foreign language credits.
I just want to piggyback super fast, sorry. I know we were talking about foreign language, and Daniel also would like to see 2 years of foreign language. We do count if you did it in middle school, that's just fine. But also, in terms of math, we like to see that students have taken at least up through Algebra 2. And I think that's something important to consider too, because depending on the track you've had through math, some students start Algebra 1 in middle school, and they're done with Algebra 2 by the end of 9th grade. Solid, awesome. Other students might be taking those math courses a little bit later. So if you're a student who's not taking Algebra 2 until your senior year, what might happen for you is you might have to say, okay, we need to hold on your decision until you have completed your first semester of Algebra 2, quarters 1 and 2. We want to see those grades. And the same would go for if you're completing your second year of a foreign language as a senior. We might say we have to wait to give you your decision until we can see those grades. So just keeping in mind those 2 sort of touch points, I think those are similar math goals and language goals for most schools. So just keeping an eye on being on track for those is important.
So if you look at the college website and you go to the college admissions requirements, it will indicate on each college's website specifics to what they require for admissions to their school. And Matt, I know you can mention science if you would like.
Oh, goodness. Okay. At the University of Georgia, we do require students to have 4 years of science. If you are an out-of-state student or a private school student or both, probably just out-of-state here, your 8th grade science can work for that, and just get in touch. But that's a great segue into not a question, but a piece of advice that I have for all of you. If you don't already have an Excel spreadsheet going to keep this kind of thing straight for the colleges you are interested in, start one tonight when you get home, and then this time next year you can thank me. You'll be so happy you've done it.
That's true. Every college does have different requirements, letters of recommendation, and that's a great way to stay organized. Thank you. Okay, I think I was on video. Thank you. Let's see. Our students have many options in their senior year, and they're in the works of that right now. So they can take a full course load of 7 academic classes. They can have dual enrollment, and they can enroll in the internship program here. How do you view each of these options?
Yeah, to echo, I believe what my colleague Marilyn said a little bit earlier is that we don't have a specific preference at Hopkins for the pathways that our students pursue. We are interested in seeing that our students are expressing interest in academic areas, taking steps towards learning more about those areas, demonstrating what we call intellectual curiosity, because that connects very closely with our curriculum. We have an open curriculum, so our students choose all of their classes. We want to see that you are pursuing those things. For some students, that's exhausting the rigor that's available to them within the context of their high school. Some need to go beyond their dual enrollment, or maybe thinking more in terms of the practical experiences. I would encourage you to kind of do some self-reflection. That's what a lot of this process is for you, and communicate with your counselor as well to find the one that's best for you. But from Hopkins' perspective, we don't have specific public preferences on any of those pathways.
Thank you. Are there any other responses? Grant, does it matter if you select a major or apply undecided as far as the admissions process goes? And then do different majors have different standards and requirements that you're specifically looking at?
That's great. At the high school level, there are no additional requirements that we're going to receive for a student. One of the great things about Mount St. Mary's University being a small liberal arts university, all of our students come in undecided, okay, which is nice because how many of you guys, just by a show of hands, how many of you guys already have an idea of what you want to do? Great. That's great, right? So you're going to come in, you're going to say, Grant, I want to do elementary education, I want to do a special education track, Grant, I want to do biochem, I really want to do biology. But we're going to come in undecided. Why? Because for a lot of you, this might be the first time that you've been away from home, right? I have students who come in and they talk to me and they say, well, you know, Grant, I'm going to graduate with an associate's degree. I'm going to come in as a junior. And I was like, actually, you've never been away from home, so you're still a first-year student. No one? Right, okay. So being able to say that we're going to get you acclimated to reading and writing at a collegiate level, which most of you already do, right? AP courses, dual enrollment courses, even honors classes. Many of you guys have already written a 5 to 8 page research paper, even probably larger than that, right? Seeing some shaking. Yeah, absolutely. So being able to really get you acclimated to the college lifestyle, although you might be able to wake up at 6:30 to catch your 7 o'clock school bus, or being able to get to school on time for 7:30 bell, it's a lot different. And you sign up for an 8 o'clock in the morning, an 8 a.m. class, and you say, I can do that, I've been doing that for 4 years. And then you realize that you wake up at 9:30 on the first day of class, and you're like, so close. So very fun. But in the first semester, students are going to be able to say, yes, I've had a biology class, I want to be, I want to major in biology, and you're going to be able to work with your academic advisor to declare that major as soon as you're ready. Some of our students come in, they say, I want to do biochemistry, they sit in on a biochem class in a lab, and they say, just kidding. But that's why, because we want to make sure that you guys get acclimated to college, and we want to make sure that when you declare your major, that you're declaring it one time or even 2 times. I declared my major 3 times, and I had a job out of college. So no worries there, right? Is everyone along?
So I just want to sort of jump off of that and say I think this is a really important question for you all to be asking as well. Of the schools you're interested in, if you know what you want to do or you think you know what you want to do. Some schools, are not one of them, but some schools do admit by major, and your likelihood of being admitted can change depending on what your major is. And that's a great question to ask, again, the college admissions officers for the schools you're interested in if you think you know what you want to do.
Thank you. Brian from Maryland, I know this is a question probably for us. Can you respond?
So we'll get this a lot, especially for people who are looking into our different programs. So at Maryland, people say, do you apply to a school or do you apply undecided? The answer is yes and no. What I mean by that is we review major blinds. No matter what major you select, it doesn't help or hurt your admission chances. So we're simply first looking at, I kind of think of it as tiers. First tier, are you admissible to the university? You can be an English major, a math major, journalism, computer science, engineering. That does not affect your admission chances. Once you determine you're admissible, that's when we look at your major. We do have something called limited enrollment programs. You might hear LEPs, it's a common acronym. So for these, which are business, computer science, engineering, biological sciences, neuroscience, and chemistry, we do a separate review for those majors. So there is this chance, and it happens quite frequently as those majors are more selected, you might get into the university but not into those majors. So as a freshman, you might get a decision that says, congratulations, you're accepted into letters and sciences. You can then transfer into any of those majors, and at that point it is not selected except for business. Just as freshmen, we do have kind of steps. So for every major, you put English, you're admitted, you're in English. If you put business, you're going to be admitted, you might not get into business though. So it doesn't help or hurt your chances, but it can depend if you're in the major right from the start.
Do you have a different answer?
Somewhere in between here for Hopkins. So we ask for students' first and second choice majors in the application, which for everybody with one major is a way for us to just see what your interests are now, and it helps us make sense of the decisions you've made thus far. This means it could absolutely change should a student come to Hopkins. The one exception is biomedical engineering. Biomedical engineering is the only major at Hopkins that is limited enrollment, that does require students to apply directly into it. There's no separate application process, it's just selecting that major, and that is simply just because of structure of the program. But even students who are not admitted to biomedical engineering, they can absolutely be admitted to the university and still participate in research and other types of experiences. So we kind of sit in an interesting place with that question.
Thank you. All right, topic 2, we're going to talk about testing, SAT, ACT, SAT2s, and AP testing. I think this is a universal question or answer for all of you, but do you have a preference for the SAT or ACT?
No, we don't have a preference. I know Maryland, in general terms, it seems more, a larger proportion of students take SATs as opposed to ACTs. I think ACTs are more popular in Midwestern states. But either is just fine, whichever seems more comfortable with you. And it's so, one of the reasons it's very fine with us, whichever one you take, is that McDaniel is actually a test optional school. So that means that if you take your SAT or ACT and you get those scores back and you are thrilled to pieces with them, you feel like they represent you as a student, you feel like you earned those scores and you want us to see them, you can absolutely submit them. But if on the other hand, you didn't do as well as you'd hoped that you would do, or you get really anxious when you go in to take tests and you know you can do better, but it just didn't go your way. If your arms and legs fell off the night before you took the test, whatever it is, you do not have to submit your test scores to us in order to be considered for admission. If you choose not to submit your test scores, then what happens is we just look more heavily at all the other pieces of your application. We're going to look at your transcript. We're going to look really closely at the day in, day out, year in, year out performance that you've given. We're going to look at your letters of recommendation, that kind of thing. For students who do submit their test scores, we will consider those. We'll sort of adjust our evaluation to give equal weight to all the pieces of your application. In general, students who do choose to submit their test scores to us, we're seeing around between an 1,100 and 1,200 on an SAT on average. We've had students achieve much higher than that. We've also had students that didn't quite hit that mark. On the ACT, we tend to see around the 23, somewhere in that neighborhood, for students that are choosing to submit their scores. But again, that is your choice.
Okay, thank you. Matt, what is a super score, and do you use super scores? How do you evaluate test scores when multiple scores are sent? Do you hold like a low score against a student, and do you require the writing section?
So super score, if you've taken the SAT or ACT more than once, some schools that do super score, University of Georgia is one of them, will give you the best combination of sub-scores to make up your whole score. That's super scoring, not super duper scoring. I didn't make that up. There are schools that will give you the best combination of sub-scores across tests. We'll give you, if you've taken the SAT twice, we'll give you the best combination of sub-scores for the SAT. If you've taken the ACT twice, we'll give you the best combination of SAT scores across. At Georgia, you can only help yourself by sending more test scores, so a lower score isn't going to negatively impact your likelihood of being admitted. What was the other part? How do we evaluate multiple scores? We give you the best possible score at Georgia. On taking SAT or ACT more than one time, more than 2 times, more than 3 times, so for places with super score, that can be helpful because you might improve your score. The data seem to suggest that taking the SAT or ACT a second time can help a student score. On average, a third time may or may not, but above that, it's unlikely that a student's going to improve their score. So unless you students out there just sitting in a gymnasium taking standardized tests is your jam, then I don't know about taking it more than twice or 3 times, but that's just based on the research that's out there as I understand it.
How about writing?
No.
Score? Not necessary.
We won't take it.
Anyone else want to comment on SAT, ACT scores, what you take, what you're looking for in that?
I'll jump in for a couple of those things. So Hopkins is not a test optional school. Standardized testing is required for our process. Again, SAT or ACT, we super score within like exams. But again, it's just one component of our broader holistic review process. So it does tell us information about some of our students' academic potential, but it's also working in concert with, again, that transcript as well. Follow-up was about SAT2s, also known as SAT subject tests. These are in specific academic content areas like classes, like physics, for example, that a student could take, not unlikely to be an advanced placement exam. Different schools will have different policies on whether or not they require these additional exams, or if these are, sometimes you hear words like optional or recommended or not required. I have to piece through the it depends nuances for these. For Hopkins, for example, these are completely not required for us. We already require that standardized test exam, but it is a great question to ask the schools that you are looking for or the programs within the schools that you are looking for if those additional standardized test scores are going to be something that are required to potentially make you stand out in a positive way in the process.
Thank you. And Brian, do you guys look at AP scores in the admissions process?
So for admissions, we are not looking at your AP score. So if you scored a 5, then you scored a 1. That does not matter for us. So we're looking at the grade you received in that AP course. Now, like, if you do decide to come to Maryland during orientation, that's when that score will matter. Usually 4s and 5s are a handful of 3s, and that's when you'll get that college credit. For admissions, I honestly really don't care. Unless if you did really well or you slept through all those exams in May. For admissions, it doesn't matter, but it will matter at the line. Don't do that.
Are there certain scores for each of you that you will accept college credit for if they receive on the AP exam? But if so, what is that score?
Hopkins is specific academic department's discretions can decide what type of credit students receive, and that would be a 4 or a 5 on those exams for credit.
Yeah, that's the same thing with the amount. It's up to the academic departments for the AP exams. Also, just want to echo what Katie said, is that Mount St. Mary's University is test optional for both admissions and for merit scholarship decisions as well. But just like Ryan said from the University of Maryland, we're looking at orientation when you decide to come to our university. That's when you'll send over your AP scores to us. 4s or 5s or better on the AP exams. But we also want you to take time to go on our website, msmary.edu/AP policy. We'll lead you straight to a PDF document that highlights for each academic year what that AP policy is and what class it actually counts for towards your core curriculum or general elective classes or even general education or general major courses.
Yeah, we take 4s and 5s as well for credit.
Okay, so moving on to the college essay. Bailey, please talk about what you'd like to see in an essay, and do you evaluate on content, student voice, or as a writing sample? And feel free to give us examples of what you'd like to see in an essay versus essay no-nos.
Big question. So first thing, let's define some terminology in terms of essays. There's different types of college essays that different schools will require. Hopkins, for our first year admissions, we require 2 different essays. The first is the personal essay, and for us that prompt comes from one of the 2 application platforms you can apply through, the Common Application or the Coalition Application. We are not placing judgment on the prompt that the student selects, but it's there when I'm looking at it. And when I'm reading a personal essay, I'm reading to learn about the person. So no matter if the student selects talk about a hero that's had an impact in your life, or some individuals have close connections with their cultural identity, talk about the ways in which that's influenced you, I'm still looking to find out how does this person think, what's important to them, how do they handle conflict, how do they learn, how do they grow. And if you think about that, I didn't give you a scenario where you have to demonstrate that. There's many different ways, many different experiences that students can talk about in these essays to highlight those traits. And so when you're thinking about the personal essay, I would recommend, instead of thinking about what do I write my essay on, what experience is going to make me stand out in the process, because honestly, 16 to 18-year-olds have a limited range of life experiences, and that is absolutely fine. Instead, think about what would I like someone to know about me, how I think, or 3 adjectives, positive adjectives, let's be especially self-love, that would stand out in the process. And what story or experience do I have that highlights those traits about me? If you start that way, you know that you're starting first with what the admissions officers are looking for. Second would be a supplemental essay. So we require one at Hopkins. These are prompts that are specific to that college. Sometimes they're simply, why are you interested in enrolling in XYZ University? Sometimes they are thought exercise like experiences. For Hopkins, we kind of sit in the middle where ours is all about collaboration, asking students about an abstract concept, but one that is very close to us. And in that, we're evaluating not just our students' communication and writing ability, but again, how they connect with one of our core values. In terms of things that I like to see, again, I love when students are able to demonstrate just they put time into these essays. These are not the be-all, end-all portions of your application, but you should be taking time to review them. The strongest ones are when the student's unique voice is coming through, not the voices of people that have peer reviewed them for you. And in terms of essay no-nos, I mean, there's a lot that we can get into. I'm sure we'd all share our least favorite one. But I honestly, I'd say the safest one is there isn't too many times this has been peer reviewed. No. Because if your essay's been edited so many times where you lose not just your train of thought, but your unique voice, and it starts to sound like a lot of other adults, it's not going to serve you the right way anymore. It should be proofread. It should be something that's comprehensive and comprehensible, but it should sound like you, because that's what we're looking to meet.
A couple other things. So, former English teacher here. I am not going to not admit you if you forget a comma or if you use the wrong form of it. I will be sad, but I won't not admit you. However, it is important to do all those things your English teachers are always nagging you to do to make sure you're double, triple checking. Use Word when at all possible to type up your essay. I've had students who've written their essays, I think, or maybe drafted them on their phones, and then there's all kinds of weird punctuation in there when it gets translated, copied and pasted into their application. Use Word if at all possible. Also, just be paying attention to the fact that spell check is a tool, but it is not the end-all be-all service. Sometimes you've used the wrong word and you've spelled it correctly, but it's still the wrong word. So make sure you are getting some eyeballs on it, not to the point that you're having it overly edited, but just a second look. I often encourage students to think about their essay as a piece of creative writing as opposed to a cover letter on a resume. Think about it as a story you want to know about yourself. And it can be something that might sound ordinary to you when you're thinking about it, but was huge for you personally. I think I wrote about getting in my very first play, which is like a pretty standard high school sort of experience, but to me it was kind of earth-shattering. And so that's what's going to come across in your essay. Don't write to us about how Shakespeare changed your life if that's not true. It will come through. I will agree with you if it is true for you. But, I want to read about something authentic to you.
Just wanted to mention, I think that the college essay provokes maybe more stress than the standardized test, the SAT or ACT in our students. And I want to say that it is a part of our review process. We're supposed to do a holistic review, and it can be important to us. And you said it's not the be-all and end-all. I like to say a great college essay can cure the sick, but it can't raise the dead. So, I think spend time on these things. We do want to hear your voice. I think sometimes my students get a little happy with the thesaurus, and it doesn't, you've lost some of you in there. It doesn't sound like you anymore. If you have it overly edited, if it sounds like a 50-year-old lawyer wrote your college admissions essay, they probably did. So it's worth spending a lot of time on, but we really want to learn something about the person themselves. I think I'm just echoing that now. Yeah.
And I have to be the school that does this. When writing the school's name, please spell it correctly. John's.
And make sure it's the right school. Makes me sad.
How about oversharing? You want to mention that?
Yeah, can I do that? That would be great. So we were talking over dinner this afternoon, this evening, about oversharing and how I will read applications this year that seem almost like a student is telling me way too much information about their life. I want to know who you are. As all of my colleagues have told you, tell your story. I've had some pretty graphic but also pretty descriptive essays over the last few months, students dealing with mental illness and dealing with sometimes the weight of the world. I had to reach out to some school counselors to say, hey, I just want you to check on the student because I'm really afraid for them. I want to make sure that they're getting the right help. I want to make sure that that school counselors knew that the student was writing about this. I would love to meet every single one of my 1,000 applicants that I review each year, but unfortunately that is not something that I can do. And so for a lot of the times it's the first time that I'm meeting a student is in their college essay. But on the other end of that, I'd like to just echo two very positive examples of a great way to start your college essay. Number one, first sentence that I got in my first year was, horse manure has changed my life forever. Yeah, okay, and so I'm thinking, what? And you have to go in, and after reading it, the student volunteered at a horse ranch in the summer between her junior and senior year. The student actually found out that the horse was sick from the manure, right? They called the vet, and then she worked hand in hand with the vet to help save the horse's life. The horse is okay, and now the student wants to be a veterinarian. That is awesome. That's a great story. And the second one is I was doing a college essay workshop this year, and I had a student who said, none of the common application prompts are nice or like things that I want to write about, and they do. They give you an option to write your own prompt. And so hers was the total number of pages in your autobiography is 500. You just open the page to 394, write the next 3 pages of your autobiography. The student was engaging, she was specific, she didn't use too many adjectives. Please don't use a lot of adjectives when you're writing your essay, but it was amazing to see that the student was able to kind of really tell her story about first starting out high school and how the lessons that she learned in high school in her first year were going to help her in her first year of college. That's a really great story and a really great essay that I like to read. I had one student who said, Post Malone will always be the greatest rock star of all time. And I was like, go ahead, I'm listening. But a lot of the time when that, I can't comment, student mentions Post Malone in college essay, because my director will be, who is that? And so tell your story in a way that is unique to you, but also remember that this might be the first time that a college admissions counselor is looking at it.
Thank you, that's very, very helpful. Okay, everyone good with college essays? All right. On to admissions. So some of you have mentioned this, but all schools are very different, and I think we're great. But can you talk a little bit about the options? Like, what is early decision? Is there early decision 2, restrictive early action, priority, and what's the advantage of applying those different ways?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go early action first, just because Mount St. Mary's University is an early action university. Early action is non-binding, which means that if you submit all of your materials, our deadline is by November 1st. You're guaranteed a decision by December 25th. That's Christmas Day. That means that the entire Mount admissions team is working on Christmas Eve to make sure that all of our application admissions decisions go out. Just kidding. But we are, if you submit all of your application materials by November 1st, you're guaranteed a decision by Christmas. And all that means is that you've been accepted, and that you've been accepted to our university or to other early action universities if they're early action. So always be on the lookout for that. Early decision is, and I'm sure my colleagues can attest to this, but early decision is binding, and I'm going to let them talk more about that because they definitely don't want to get in trouble with the Maryland state system. But being able to, you guys talk a little bit about early, you guys are on early decision. But Johns Hopkins is,
We don't have early decisions.
We do. Early decision is another one of these early plans, and the big difference is students are making a commitment at the time of applying early. So we have November 1st as our early decision deadline. These are students who have a jump start on the process. They know with 100% certainty that Hopkins is their #1 choice. They've looked at us academically, socially. They know in terms of our financial aid packages that the packages that they would receive come mid-December should they be admitted. That's when we really start early decisions are the same as if they would have applied later on in the year. And they sign a binding contract with themselves, their counselor, and their family saying that you're my #1 choice and this is where I'm going to go. So it's important when you're thinking about this that if you have a school that is your #1 choice, an early plan could be a good option for Hopkins specifically. It is when all the seats in the class are open. And we receive far more talented students than we can ever say yes to. And for a student who knows this is their right fit, early could be their time to be able to come in. But that said, we typically have about 50 to 55% of our class that's going to be coming in through regular decision, which is the standard pathway. Ryan, do you want to mention what it is that you pursue?
So we are early action. So we have 2 deadlines, but as for those rising seniors next year, you'll hear that well, no, we changed it. We are early action. We got in trouble with that guy. They were like, so the wording is early action for priority review. Same. So we early action is non-binding. The reason when I do my visit to Wootton or other schools, I say there's really only one deadline. That is November 1. The reason is we take about 90% of the class from early action and only 10% from regular. So that 10% is a lot more competitive. You're not eligible for all those great living money programs we have. You're not eligible for the Honor College. You're not eligible for College for Our Scholars. You're not eligible for all merit-based scholarships. You are eligible for financial aid. But all the stuff that you want to be eligible for, plus it being not as competitive is early action. So I said this year, number one, those decisions will come out January 31st, and the regular is in March. So it's pretty much just one deadline, straightforward, not binding.
Matt or Katie, you know anything else to mention? Do one of you, I don't think either of you have rolling, right? Do you want to mention what it is? Go ahead, yeah.
Cool. So we don't have this, but rolling. So rolling admissions. Some universities have a situation where with rolling admissions, it means that you have a very large window of time in which to apply, and you can apply at any time within the window and be accepted. It's not functioning on a deadline model. And oftentimes in the case of schools that have rolling admissions, it also means that a student might be able to start in the spring or in the fall as opposed to being restricted to starting that fall semester. There are certain advantages, certainly, to the rolling admissions because, you're not under that time constraint for sure. But also, the reason McDaniel doesn't do rolling admissions, we have several different deadlines. We have early decision, early action, regular decision. They're all for your convenience. For McDaniel, it's not necessarily an issue of applying early is the only way, the best shot at getting in. We consider all students equally, but you have your choice there. But the reason we don't do rolling admissions is that we want all of our students to go through the first year experience together. So we have all of our first year students starting in the fall. And that way they go through orientation together. They go through we have a first year seminar class, which is a whole semester of a class that's taught by their academic advisor. There's a peer mentor as part of that class. And we want those students to go through all of that in their first year to sort of have that transition from high school world to college world, especially if they're students who are going to be living on campus and are away from home the first time. Other schools have different philosophies about that, do have rolling admissions. When it comes to transfers, transfer students, we do have deadlines for those applications, but we will admit students to a fall semester or a spring semester. So it's somewhere between rolling and what we do for undergraduates.
Thank you. Matt, could you comment on what percentage you take out-of-state students and what percentage from the early applicant will you accept?
Have you been talking to the Georgia State Senate?
I don't know.
This has come up. So some schools, I think I mentioned earlier that we could have answered every question, but it varies or it depends. And I think does applying early, how does that affect your likelihood of being admitted is a great one of those. Maryland and I are similar, Maryland and Georgia are similar schools, but we have a very different answer on this. And I think it's worth checking with your folks. At the University of Georgia, whether you apply early action or regular decision, you're not more or less likely to get in. We review all of our applications in the same way for our early applicants and our regular decision applicants. There's never a difference in your likelihood of being admitted in state or out of state at the University of Georgia, unless something changes in the state senate. That would be a good look. That's one of those myths, the persistent myths that I end up working a lot on, is something about in-state and out-of-state admission generally, and you may want to speak to this as well, being another public, but one that I hear the most that is different than that, but this reminds me of is, this comes up as, I heard that you only take so many students from this part of the state, or from Maryland, or from Virginia, or from Metro Atlanta, or from this school or school district or area code or zip code. And none of that is true at my school, and I don't know a school that any of that's true from. They say, we're going to cap the number of students we take from this area or anything. And I like to bust that at every chance I get, so that's one.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay.
I've got
Oh, go ahead.
add a little, just so, myth debunking, always fun. So the state of Maryland requires all public schools in Maryland public to be at 70% in-state residents. So that is the cap that we have to live by. Our freshman admissions is usually around 72 to 73%. Transfer usually bumps it up to around 74 to 75% of our total population coming from the state of Maryland. Now, we do not have a quota per county. People always think it's easier to get in from XX school or XX county. Because we review, again, randomly, we do that kind of on purpose. There's not a set. We're only taking this many students from Montgomery County. We're only taking this many students from Wootton. We're only taking this many students from X, Y, and Z. You're all kind of in the same guidelines. The only requirement we have is that 70% of the state requires us to be in.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Kind of all over the place, aren't I? Yeah? Okay.
Some schools use demonstrated interest as part of their admissions process. So Tulane's a good example. I know that they're a big demonstrated interest school. So for them, visiting the website, or if their rep comes to Wootton to visit, coming to see them, sending that email to the college admissions office to say, man, I love your school, can make a difference in your likelihood of being admitted. At other schools, the University of Georgia, for instance, we don't use demonstrated interest. So I'm glad you're all here tonight. Thank you. If that's why you came, I'm super sorry. If you have questions and want to follow up with me and shoot me an email, I'm really happy to answer them. But it's not going to make it more or less likely to get admitted to my school. I think asking that question ahead of time can help some heartache on your part of, I can't visit, Hawaii. I don't know if they use demonstrated interest or not, but good. Okay, they don't. So I can't visit Hawaii. Am I still just as likely to get in? Or do I need to focus my phone calls, visits to college fairs, who I can see when they come to visit my school, to these schools that do track that and for whom it can make a difference in admission? Do any of you use demonstrated interest? Cool. It's awesome. Do it or don't, whatever.
Some schools do require interviews, but I don't think
Some schools, and if it's a demonstrated interest school and they say the interview is optional, it isn't, do the interview.
You mentioned something. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ben. I was going to tack on that. So if it's not demonstrated interest, what's the importance of visiting a campus? If you can, visiting a campus is probably the best way to get a sense of what that school's environment is like. You get to talk to, obviously, admissions reps, but the very best ambassadors of the undergraduate student experience are the undergraduate students themselves. Current students you find in the dining hall walking around on campus, they should be folks that you're thinking about. Do they remind you of yourself, of your best friends, or folks that you don't like being around? That's also part of the process as well. And even if you're not necessarily certain that you want to stay within Maryland, we are so fortunate as a state to have so many different types of schools that are available close by. So you can see not just research institutions or state flagships, but historically black colleges and universities, small liberal arts schools, military-affiliated institutions, art institutions. So if you just want to learn by institutional type, that's incredibly valuable. I used to recruit in the Southwest, and there are states that do not have that kind of diversity of schools represented. And so I encourage you to utilize the benefit of being located where we are to sample different types of schools and think about how you feel on each and every one of those campuses.
Sorry, really quick comment. We don't admit based on your demonstrated interest either, but I am interested in knowing you because the more contact you have with your admissions counselor, you have one at every single school you're interested in. The more contact you have with us, the easier it is for us to help you. We can't help you with a problem if we don't even know you have a problem. So it is important to sort of be active in that way and not be, we're all just people, and I try not to be particularly frightening. I think I achieved that pretty well. But our whole job is to help you and advocate for you, but we can't do that unless we get to talk to you. So please reach out.
So just to clarify, when you say you, do you mean the parents in the room, or do you mean the students to contact?
Preferably the students. The students. We want to talk to you, the students, because you're the one who's going to go to college, and we want to know you. So it's really great when I'm not going to not admit you because I've only talked to your mom. But now is the time to start taking the initiative to reach out on your own. Now is also the time, if you have a funny voicemail message, to maybe consider changing it to something more professional and or to empty your voicemail box because we will be calling you and trying to get a hold of you. Checking your email, especially if you use your MCPS email that you never check unless it's for school stuff and stuff is there. I can't tell you how many times I've said, well, we needed this form from you. I've sent you so many emails, and the student tells me, oh, I never checked that one. What? Also make sure it's your email. I'm emailing away to somebody, and it turns out it's the person's mom. And they're not getting the messages. I'm interrupting mom at work, which is not fair. So, yeah, talk to us. Thank you.
Yes, very important. Thank you, guys. Okay, so recommendations. Do you require teacher and or counselor letters of recommendation? And if so, what impact do they have on your admissions decision? And what if the student sends in more recommendations than required, maybe an outside coach or internship supervisor?
So this answer will vary a lot depending on the school. So at Maryland, we require 2 letters of recommendation. That's a requirement. You send one, your application is incomplete, you will not get a decision. So So we require one counselor letter and one teacher letter. Like I say, the counselor letter is going to give us your kind of impression of you as a person, in terms of the course rigor you've taken, any possible extracurricular activities. Their point is not just to restate your resume, but to give more insight to you as a person. The teacher letter recommendation is supposed to give that insight to the academic classroom. And your transcript says something, but kind of a little more deeper in terms of you as an actual student. If you have additional letters, so we do not have a cap, please do not try and break any records. I really do not need to read 23 letters. They all say the exact same thing. Another thing we're talking about at dinner is, you are sending these letters at individual times, and you may think that they're giving a lot of pictures of you. We're reading these all at one time. And if they're saying, that fifth letter is saying the exact same thing that letter 2 said, I'm not going to penalize you for that, but it gets a little bit redundant at a certain point. So you kind of want to think, I say the sweet spot is kind of 2 to 3 letters. Maybe a teacher, counselor, maybe a coach, maybe a volunteer group leader, or a second teacher. I say that 3 spot kind of nice big picture. At a certain point, it's just more words that aren't really saying anything new.
Bailey, do you want to touch on if there are specific subjects of teachers that you prefer or grade level preference to hear from?
So at Hopkins, we require a total of 3 letters of recommendation, 1 counselor or whoever plays that role for you in your school, and then 2 teacher letters of recommendation. These, we don't have specific subject areas that these should be for or penalize a student if they submit someone outside of these. But if you think about who you should be asking for your letters of recommendation, think similar to your essay of what would I want someone to know about me? What is this person going to say about me? In what context do they know me? This should be someone who can speak to your level of, in the classroom, academic engagement, in classes that would most likely mirror what the classroom experience at Hopkins would be. Therefore, these are typically, not exclusively, core classes, and in the latter half of high school. Folks who have known you in those upper level classes can speak to the level of engagement, critical thinking skills, collaboration that are most closely aligned with what your experience would potentially be like as a first-year student. Again, these are not prescriptive, but again, you want to ask yourself, what is going to be said about me in terms of my interactions in class, how I'm performing in those settings, and what would Hopkins know about me in that respect. We also would, if there's somebody else outside of those, we feel like I really need my band director to write a letter of recommendation for me because I was integral in reinstating the band in my high school, and that's something that no one else is going to be talking about in my application. Maybe that's an additional letter of recommendation that you would consider having being sent along, but always kind of start with what the school requires first, I would say.
Any other comments? Just to debunk a myth here at Wootton, a lot of our juniors think that they have to ask a teacher and have that teacher for the entire year of their junior year. A teacher will be happy to write a letter of recommendation if they had that child in their class for just 1 semester. So that is a myth, not in fact. They do not have to have the same teacher the whole year in order to have a letter of recommendation from that teacher. Thank you guys. So some miscellaneous topics. Grant, are you a need-blind school? And if so, can you please explain what that means or the impact on the admissions process if you are not?
Sure. So Mount St. Mary's University is not need blind. We are actually need based. So what that means in your application process and admissions process is that 100% of our students who enroll at Mount St. Mary's University and are accepted receive some form of merit scholarship, which is not contingent on your need-based financial aid package. Your financial aid package is created by you completing the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. You can find that at nfsa.gov. But what happens is that your merit-based scholarship is all contingent on your acceptance or in your application. Mount St. Mary's individually has 6 different merit rankings, ranging anywhere from $29,000 to $12,000. If you have no demonstrated need, then it won't affect your merit-based situation at all. That merit scholarship is free money. Stay with me. Free money. Free money. That you receive just based on your total application, which is really important.
And now for something a bit different. Johns Hopkins University is a need-blind institution, which means that a student's ability to pay or not be able to pay for their Hopkins experience is not taken into consideration in the admissions process. means that admissions and financial aid is happening in two different places. For the financial aid side of things, we want to also ask schools what percent of your financial need are they able to meet. For Hopkins, we are able to meet students 100% of their demonstrated financial need through no loan financial aid packages. So while we have very, very minimal merit-based scholarship, we push our resources towards the need-based side of financial aid to make sure that our families can enroll in that way. The ways that individual schools are going to do this are going to be very different, especially when you consider the private and public conversation in financial aid as well. I don't know if you've jumped the gun already, but someone else here, public school wanted to chime in. Net price calculators, online calculators. There's a number of different ways that you can find out what your potential net price would be at a school. What I mean by that is every school has their sticker price. Sticker price is typically the larger number that can sometimes cause the sticker shock. Wow, that's big. But then every school has, or every family would have their net price. What would the actual price be for you based upon your family's individual need or merit-based scholarships that you're qualifying for? And that number is often different from that sticker price. How different that's going to be is going to vary depending upon the resources of that individual school. Schools are required to have a calculator, it's called a net price calculator, where we put in, attuned specifically to us, our resources, and you and your family can enter in your personal financial information in that setting. It's not being captured on the other side of it, but just a quick snapshot for you. So if you were applying in that year, even if you are a year out from going through the process, what would your net price be? It's a great way at least to start the conversation to see how would this be attainable specific for you and your individual family. We have the net price calculator. We also use My Intuition. Is anybody else on that right now? My Intuition is another tool that a couple schools are using. Net price calculator, longer, takes in more information, yields a more comprehensive result. My Intuition, about 6 questions in less than that in terms of minutes. It gives you a high, low, and best estimate of your financial aid package at that specific school. So again, these are not official financial aid reviews. In the actual financial aid or merit-based scholarship process, there's other information that's being funneled into this. These should not be considered your financial aid packages, but it should help you begin to see what that, again, personalized or net price would be specifically for you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Katie, can you speak to any automatic merit aid or scholarships that you guys might offer? And then everyone can answer it.
Sure. So McDaniel, we are also a need-blind institution in that that's not coming into play in terms of whether we're going to admit you. We're also not considering students' financial need when we assign merit scholarships. That's something that's purely based on your merit. We do have merit scholarships. All students that apply to McDaniel are considered for merit-based scholarship just by virtue of applying. You don't have to do an extra form or anything like that. Our merit scholarships can range anywhere from about $15,000 a year all the way up to full ride. We are a private college, and I know that people hear private college and think, oh, no, because they know that the sticker price when it comes with merit-based college, with private colleges can be higher. However, we take a lot of steps with our merit-based scholarships to counteract that. So I'd say a typical merit scholarship, you're looking at somewhere between $15,000 to $28,000 per year. It's renewable. But then we also have an honors college. If you apply to our honors program, you can get additional scholarship that can take you all the way up to full tuition, so you're only paying for room and board. And then we do have our very top merit scholarships called our Dorsey Scholarship. We invite our top 1% of applicants to come to campus to compete for that, not like Hunger Games style, but like sitting down for interviews and things. And we feed you a fancy dinner after you're done your interview so you can relax. And then you do spend the night with a student, a fellow Dorsey student, so you can see what that's like. And last year, that Dorsey Scholarship is full ride. Last year, we invited about 30 students to come and compete, and of those 30, we gave out 5 Dorsey Scholarships. So it is highly, highly, highly competitive, but it is a possibility. So there's a really nice wide range of merit scholarship that we offer. I'm a McDaniel alum, and I would have never been able to go if it wasn't for the amount of merit scholarship that we offer, in addition to looking at your FAFSA and that need-based side of things.
So the thing I would say on this is the questions that I think or good for you to ask schools and universities you're looking at, is there a deadline that I need to apply by to be considered for scholarships? And if there is, what, right? And then what do I need to do to apply for money at your school? A lot of us up here automatically review for merit and academic scholarships. When you apply to places like the University of Georgia, we consider you to see if we can give you a merit or academic scholarship automatically. When you want to ask, is there a deadline that I need to hit in order to be considered for this? Because some schools that's true, and for some schools you need to apply for those scholarships. And it would be terrible if you found out on November 16th, the deadline was November 15th, and you can't be considered for those scholarships.
Like a piece of advice I like to kind of give. So when you think about public schools versus private schools, in general, this is not the case for each individual institution. In general, public schools usually have a lower tuition price. We do not have as much money to give out. Merit scholarships, unlike financial aid, are a yield tool. We are giving top students coming to the university. Financial aid, that is a completely different process. That is for helping students afford college. Merit scholarships is looking purely at your talent. So when you want to think about a public school that does not have a lot of funding to give out, you got to kind of be realistic in terms of your expectations. It's kind of a tough pill to swallow. But if you're looking at a rather selective institution and you're towards, you're a good student, you might be even admitted in fall, might be in the honors college, but you're not in that upper echelon, don't expect a full ride. Like, it's kind of a tough conversation to have, but it's a good conversation to think about. In terms of if you're looking at a school and you see their average 50% SAT, you see their average GPA, if you're around that, that range, you're going to be a very competitive applicant. You might not be a very competitive merit-based scholarship candidate. You just got to kind of be realistic with yourself, because the more, I don't want to say realistic you are with yourself today, but you can kind of get a better idea and prepare yourself for the process.
Thank you. So we have about 10 minutes left, and so I want to open that up to parents and kids if you guys have questions. But before we do that, can we give our panelists a big round of applause? So I'm going to open the floor, and I will come to you so you can ask your questions. Please be general and limited.
Thank you all so much for coming. This is really helpful information. Around the application side of things, could you talk a little bit about whenever you have early action or early decisions? So we have two questions here. When is it that you need to decide by? How long is that typically that you need to hear back from the student on their acceptance of that offer? And also, how do you treat possible deferrals?
Again, the question about early plans. So you heard a little bit about when the school notifies the student, but when does the student respond back? And then is there any other type of decision that you might get other than an admit or a deny? So Hopkins specifically, again, to remind you, we are an early decision option. That's the binding option. You can only apply to one school early decision. Under early decision, for us, the timeline kind of works like this. Students apply by November 1st. We give out our admissions and relevant financial aid decisions by mid-December. And students who are admitted have until January 15th to officially confirm their spot. Now, if they're a good early decision student and they're going about this process in the way that they should be, that answer should be a yes. They know, they went, applied, and entered into that contract saying this is my number one choice. And with few exceptions, most of those students are going to be coming and replying yes on January 15th. Sometimes there's other things that come up, or maybe financial aid appeals, which is a separate type of process, but the vast majority of these are students that we expect to be joining us in the fall. A deferral at Hopkins, we were talking about an admissions deferral, which is different than deferring your admission. An admissions deferral is when perhaps the university is saying, we cannot admit you, or we're not going to admit you in our early decision class right now, but we're going to review you again in the regular decision process, in the context of the regular decision pool, which for Hopkins is larger. So for this, it's only a handful of students that we're really going to do this for each year. It's typically because there's something else in the application we're still looking for, and it's rare that we will have this process. For us, for the most part, we're going to give a student the yes or the no in December to have them move forward. If a student is deferred from early decision, they receive in their financial or in their admissions portal some FAQs about that process. Do I need to give any additional information? And we kind of help them along the process in that respect. But that just means they'll be reviewed again in regular decision, which means they will have their second decision coming out in March.
For folks that have been admitted, offered admission in early action, you only have until May 1st to respond to this. Same as any other decision except for early decision. So I didn't name these things, guys, I'm sorry. For deferred students, similarly, one of the good questions is there any difference in review for a student that gets deferred who's applied early action? So at the University of Georgia, we defer a lot of students in early action, which means we think that they're close academically what we're looking for and we want more time with their file. So we pulled those similarly into our regular decision pool, and they're read just like the rest of our files.
My question around the deferment was more of they're accepted, but students like for going to the school.
Do a gap year kind of situation?
Yeah.
So Mount St. Mary's University, and I imagine a lot of our universities, if the student defers, they say they want to take a gap year, that's great. They can defer their acceptance all the way for 1 year. So if they defer their acceptance in fall of 2020, they can come in fall of 2021 without having to reapply. If the student does take any community college classes during that time, during that year, we encourage that student to reapply as a transfer student because we want to make sure that that student is getting as much bang for their buck, right? We want to make sure that they can transfer some credits in from their local community college, or maybe they were taking some classes online. We want to make sure that we get those students available to them.
At McDaniel, we also are fine with students that would like to take a gap year. And the one condition, though, is that we will hold their spot for the full year. They will get the same financial aid package, the same merit scholarship. It's just like putting a freeze on the whole thing unless that student starts taking community college classes. Because the second you take community college classes that are accredited courses, you become a transfer student and you have to start your process over again. So that has been the heartbreak sometimes of having to explain. They think they're getting ahead of the game because they did not communicate. They didn't realize that like your spot's no longer frozen because you did some college. So that's something to keep in mind, what feels more beneficial for the student to do. But for McDaniel, if the student decides they need to take a gap year, all that we ask them to do, we have a brief form that they fill out and we ask the student to write us a letter explaining what they plan to do with their gap year. Whether that's working or traveling or taking some time to just figure some things out and get stable, whatever that happens to be, that's just so that we have that on record. And then I have about 4 students this year who deferred from last year that I just start getting in contact with again this time of year because now we're treating them like an entrant for fall 2020. So they're starting to get the admitted student day stuff and all their package. So it's pretty seamless for us when the student decides to do that.
Or if you say that you want to take a gap year and you end up saying, honestly, after it's October and I think I can start in the springtime, we're also going to allow that student to come in as a spring first-year student, or if they took classes in that first semester. But allow that student to come in. We have a new student orientation program that runs in the springtime as well. It's not as intensive. It's not as like a 4 days getting to know every single person on the campus, but it's here's a tour of campus to find where your classes are. Here's a tour of the dining hall and figuring out how really good Miss Betsy's chocolate chip cookies are. That kind of stuff.
Did you have a question?
First of all, thank you all for being here tonight with us to help us onboard with this journey. Question for you, Rand. I was a little bit confused when you mentioned about senior year, like how you view the grades during the senior year. Does it mean like GPA overall comes to you, but when it comes to application process, you don't look at senior year grades, and then I don't know whether it's the same for all schools or that differs?
It's a little different depending on the school. But for us, so the application deadline is November 1st. So by then, your senior first semester grades will not be finished. So that decision we make will be purely based on the freshman, sophomore, junior grades. A lot of times students will send us updates. My transcript is now finished. I sent my update. Because we keep it completely equitable, and not every school will send those updates, or depending on when we review students, because we start reviewing, November 2, if they don't have their transcripts, we keep it completely uniform across the board. So when we're evaluating decisions, we're going to see what courses you signed up for. We don't want to see, AP's junior year, and then senior year, you just took that half day, did not do an internship, didn't do it normal, and just coasted. We're not going to see that, and that will hurt your application process, but from an admissions point of view, the grade itself will not matter. Now, we will get a final transcript at the end, make sure you graduated, make sure that we did not, senioritis did not completely destroy our ability to do work. But in terms of admissions point of view, we're only looking at those first 3 years of grades.
And so, in a different perspective from Hopkins, we are taking a more active role in looking at these senior grades, regardless of when the student applies. If they're an early decision student, similar to Maryland's deadline or priority deadline, what did you say? Early action option for priority review. We don't have those senior year grades by November 1st, but for early decision students that are admitted, as well as all regular decision applicants, we do require mid-year grades in whatever form your school is processing these, because for the early decision student, we again want to see that you are maintaining the level of academic performance or doing better than you had attained at the time of admission come in December. And for regular decision, it's also a checkup as well. We want to make sure that you are still succeeding in the ways that you have been previously.
I'm going to have the panelists answer one more question.
I have a question for Ryan. For the University of Maryland limited enrollment programs that you have specifically for the Smith School of Business, what are you looking for in the transcript or from the student to get into those limited enrollment programs?
So first is admission to the university. If you're not admission to the school, business will not even see your face. It's pretty straightforward on that. So they're going to look more so at GPA. You do not have to have a business experience. Some students have already worked for 4 years. Some have, done a lot of great internships with their parents or had experience. They, do an e-commerce business. Some students are like, I just kind of want to study finance. I don't really know. That's totally fine either way. They're going to look more, so it's similar view to admissions. They're going to be looking holistically, but from a business point of view. So more so in the math. Have you taken a high level of mathematics? Do you have an interest in business, or do you kind of just think that it's a possible high salary? Those are kind of things they look for. It is still holistic in a point of view, though. But GPA and test scores are still going to be the main 2 things they look for, especially from that math point of view.
So we've run out of time, but if you have burning questions that you won't be able to sleep at night, please email Ms. Carr or myself, and we will pass it along to our panelists and make sure that those questions are answered for you. Thank you all for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. Our panelists are going to exit, but once again, we really appreciate you being here, Ms. Cocker.
Yes, thank you all for coming. Great information. Can I just remind you again that there is the HBCU Fair on the 24th, and that there is an SAT that's provided by Montgomery County in March. So they're really good opportunities for juniors to take. And then following that, we do have the NACAC Fair, which was a huge fair where all the colleges come, and we take the kids to the fair so they're able to look around. And parents can then go in the evening. So that's a great way to see colleges without having to travel a million miles. I think that's about it for this evening. Please travel safely, and